Migrant crossing numbers pass a record 7,000 this year as hundreds more make the journey yesterday. I'm Craig, a former British soldier, and I'm giving my review and my reaction to the mass numbers of migrants crossing the English Channel. So, if we look at this article from GB News, this was published yesterday on the 8th of the 4th. A record migrant crossings pass a record 7,000 this year as hundreds more make the journey today. So what it's saying here is a record 7,000 more migrants have arrived in the UK so far this year. People smuggling gangs took advantage of a small 12-hour weather window to push out multiple migrant boats from the French coasts. GB News counted a total of 428 Channel migrants as they were brought to the Border Force Migrant Processing Centre at Dover Harbour throughout the day. 428 is a mass amount of people to cross the English Channel into the UK. But before we carry on, please do head over to www.combatreadyhq.co.uk, link in the description, to check out our amazing coffee blends. Massively supports the channel and it really helps us out. So thank you for all of your continued support and a massive shout out to all of our channel members. But getting back into this article then. At one point this morning, every available French patrol vessel was tasked with responding to at least 8 small boats sighted in the English Channel. As we know though, the French can't do anything once the boats are in the waters because of their laws, which I'll cover in a full video. We're going to dive into that a lot more detailed and to see how we can start working with the French to hopefully make a better deterrent. If you haven't seen my previous video on the British Army Regular Reserve sort of Border Force Regiment, then go and check out that. We only released that a few days ago. Kent's Dungeness lifeboat was also called into asset with all Border Force vessels already dealing with the migrant boats crossing into UK waters. What we've got to realise as well, all Border Force vessels are being basically moved into this area to help save or prevent any loss of lives in the waters. We've also got the rest of the UK to cover as well. This is obviously where they're making the majority of their crossings, but the rest of our waters need protecting. The rest of our borders need protected. But so much of our assets and our kit and equipment and our personnel going into this one location to try and prevent or at least save lives that you know, it's being taken away from the rest of our borders. Possible people smuggling around the rest of the UK, drug smuggling, and just general security of the UK. That's why possible British Army sort of Border Force regiments, Royal Navy, I don't know, Tri-Service, whatever it could be, unit that specialises in this, that supports the Border Force and then provides more security for our border, especially with the uncertainty within the UK and the world right now. The latest arrivals take the total number of migrants who have made the illegal journey this year to more than 7,200. Yes, it's illegal, okay? They are not flying in or coming in through ferry or whatever it is and going through border control. So the issue, like the question is, why are they not just being turned around? I know the issue. Okay, I shouldn't have put it like that. We know that they're coming across. They're more than likely not going to have passports. It's hard to ID them. Possibly hard to identify which country they're coming from, and they want to claim asylum. But if you're not coming through the airports, if you're not coming through actual border control, there should be a simpler way of just turning them around, but we can't. That's why the big thing is deter. Okay, let's try and deter them from actually making the crossing in the first place. But it should be as simple as, you haven't come through border control. If I rocked up to a country with my passport and they didn't like myself or didn't believe I was entering that country for any sort of reason, they're just like, off you go, don't care, off you go, literally. But you know, just put them back on a boat. But not as simple as that. So they say that figure is 33% higher than the 5,435 who crossed from France at the same point last year. Today's migrant boat launches are the first since last Friday, when 154 arrived in UK waters in 4 small boats. The overall number of arrivals is the highest at this point in the year since the small boat migrant crosses began in 2018. Starmer, well done for cancelling Rwanda. He is adamant he's tackling the issue. He is going to stop these small boat crossings. And actually, they have just increased. They're going to increase anyway, so I'll give him this. As the year's gone on, since they've started recording numbers in 2018, there's more people hearing about it. There's more gang smuggling. So there is more boats making a crossing. So if you would look at a graph, you'd expect it to increase anyway. But what he's put in place at the minute has not deterred people from doing it. So the Rwanda policy, which he called a gimmick, most probably would have been the best policy to keep in place just as the deterrent. Yes, it was costing British taxpayers a lot of money, but the amount of money we're spending housing or putting these in hotels or holding rooms is costing the government and the taxpayers millions and millions per day anyway. So why not put it into a possible policy that may fail in the future, but was working as a current deterrent anyway to keep in place? That's my thoughts anyway. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has vowed to smash the gang and has invested millions of pounds additional funding in a new border security command. One senior maritime security source told GB News it was clear that the law enforcement approach alone was not working. No shit, Sherlock. The source said officials are now trying to suggest that we are seeing record numbers of channel migrants because of an unusually high number of days when weather conditions have been favourable. No, not the case. But the fact is, if the law enforcement efforts against the criminal gangs were actually working, it wouldn't matter whether the weather was good or not. It wouldn't, because if you are tackling the gangs and you're preventing the crossings, then whether the weather was good or bad, the crossings wouldn't happen. The ability of criminal gangs to operate would be curtailed, and we'd expect to see a corresponding drop in small boat activity. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We all want to endanger small boat crossings which threaten lives and undermine our border security." That's the big one. Yes, they do threaten lives. But our border security, we are an island. It should be hard to invade us or come into the country. But look how easy it is. We're being so undermined. And we need to be tougher. We need a bigger deterrent. And yes, we do need to smash the gangs. But I don't get why, which we'll cover in a minute. We can't work with the French a little bit more. The people smuggling gangs do not care if the vulnerable people they exploit live or die. As long as they pay, and we will not stop at nothing to dismantle their business models and bring them to justice. Oh, excuse me. That's why this government has put forward a serious, credible plan to finally restore order to our asylum system, including tougher enforcement powers, ramping up returns to their highest levels of more than half a decade, and a major crackdown on illegal working to end on the false promise of jobs used by gangs to sell spaces on boats. I don't believe a word Starmer says, to be honest. I don't think he's tackling the issue. I'd love to know what your thoughts are on this. We definitely need a tougher stance. I don't get why we can't work more closely with the French. Why have we not got sort of military or border force presence on the beaches? I'd love to know. I need to dive a little bit more onto the French policies and what they're saying here. And like I said, I'm going to do a future video on their laws and why the issue is that once they're in the water, there's nothing they can do. But why have we not got a military sort of border force presence on the French beaches to help prevent these crossings, to stop these boats from getting in the water? Because the French can stop them before they get in the water, but they can't stop them once they're in the water. So why have we not got a presence helping patrol, obviously, the massive miles of beaches, to help the French do this? And I need to, like I said, look into it more, but would the French not want to cooperate to prevent all these illegal immigrants coming to France? If you see the videos of them, in Calais, etc., they're just on the streets, they're in ditches in tents, and they're just stuck there. The French aren't picking them up. There's just thousands and thousands of them just trying to get in lorries, cars, vans, trying to get in boats. It is chaos, absolute chaos in France. And I'm sure they would want to prevent that as well for security of the French people. But yeah, we are at a record number apparently when it comes to sort of this time of year. numbers are massively up. We need a deterrent, and we need to do something now. We need more Royal Navy ships in the water. We need more border force and possibly military presence on either side. So on the UK beaches and on the French beaches. And just a tougher stance. I think most probably once they're in, it's just too easy, isn't it? Where, you know, they get legal aid on whether they're going back. They get put up in hotels, phones, money, etc. If you took all that away and they had absolutely nothing and just went, you're going back, then there's less chance that people would come across, because then that would start to trickle back to say, actually, when we get to the UK, there's a reason why they're coming to the UK, isn't there? Yes, I know a lot of other countries are having to take in a lot, but there's a reason they're making this trip, a dangerous trip across the English Channel. And that's because once they get here, it's extremely easy for them. So you need to obviously stop all that and then put a massive presence on the shores, because I'm sure a woman with a baby, if they saw a mass military presence in the sea and on the shores, they most probably wouldn't want to come across and make it onto there. That would most probably make them think twice about coming across. Plus, get surveillance, reconnaissance, find out, let's track where these gangs are coming from. Let's get units in OPs on the French beaches. Let's track where they're hiding the boats. Let's track where they're bringing these boats out from, where they're running to and from. Let's see their infill and exfil routes. Because why have we not done that? They're hiding in the sand dunes on the French beaches, but why are we not tracking their routes? They're most probably mixing it up a little bit, but why have we not got OPs out or some sort of surveillance out, tracking, trying to see if there's a pattern, so we can stop them before they get to the French waters? Because that's the issue. Once in the French waters, the French law stops them from doing anything. But I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Please do comment below. I'll be very interested to know what you got to say. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.